and wherever he pointed, that's exactly where lightning would strike. And wherever he didn't point was just no lightning whatsoever. He was known by the people who believed him, by the people who supported him, to cause stuff like earthquakes, even tsunamis, plane crashes, and be able to summon UFOs. And part of his explanation was actually taught by aliens. So using his mental ability, he would focus on
Marvel Spider-Man 2. Press cross button to start.
Una lección, Jairo, una puta lección.
Select save slot. Saved game. 1. New game. New game. New game. Saved game. 1. Saved game. Saved game.
Psychotic and rude, I'd say. Like, he literally said on multiple occasions that certain natural disasters were actually the result and punishment for people not believing in his powers, which is just insane. So I'm not too sure how believable this whole thing is, but he did apparently have a decent track record for predicting weather and for predicting, lightning bolts in the sky sort of thing, but I might need to see a little more evidence on this one. Real quick, guys, if you've been enjoying the video, I am trying to hit a goal of 30,000 subscribers by the end of July. So it would mean an absolute ton if you hit that little button, hit the like button if you like the video, and most importantly, get comfy and enjoy the video. The super spectrum is a concept proposed by John Keel, and this was in his book, The Eighth Tower on Ultra-Terrestrials and the Super Spectrum. And it kind of compares a ton of these supernatural occurrences, and draws some similarities between them all, and kind of suggests that they all came from the same source. And this source, he claims, is a super intelligence that exists in another dimension, this dimension kind of being the super spectrum, and it is obviously outside of the electromagnetic spectrum as well as our dimension. It's a little refreshing novel, and does have some, I think, new ideas, maybe not new for everyone, but certainly new for me. But as always, probably take this with a pinch of salt. Sentient UFOs is a theory that suggests that some UFOs aren't just, solid vehicles like a car or a plane or something, but are
Marvel
actual
Spider-Man 2. Press cross button to start. Select save slot. Saved game. New game. Saved new game. New game. 5. Saved game. New game. Saved game. 4. New game. 5. Screen reader enabled. On. Saved game. 4. Select challenge level. Friendly neighborhood. Select save slot. New saved game. 1. Saved game. Saved. Select challenge level. Select save slot. New game. Saved game.
Aliens influence the New Age movement. So this is a theory that
select challenge level. Friendly neighborhood. Vertical list. 1 of 5. This setting is to players who friendly. Vertical list. 2 of 5. Friendly neighborhood. Vertical list. 1 of 5. This setting is for players who want normal combat challenge. Friendly neighborhood. Vertical list. 1 of 5. Ultimate. Vertical list. Amazing. Vertical list. 3 of 5. Spectacular. Ultimate. Friendly neighborhood. Before you start. New game. Vertical list. Previously on. Vertical list. New.
And they walked over a little screen, and on the other side of this screen was the stand-down clown. They described him as being roughly 2 meters tall, looking more or less humanoid. He had 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, eyes, a mouth, and he looked kind of like a human.
Era un presagio, Doc.
Which is really quite something. And they said it spoke to them for around half an hour.
Era un puto presagio.
It was quite friendly and kind, and curiously enough, it didn't actually open its mouth when it spoke, or when it ate food. It spoke using.
Era un presagio, Doc.
It was a somewhat I'm afraid. It said that if it were attacked by humans, that it would probably not defend itself.
Era un puto presagio. Listo, Doc.
It could use a pencil and paper to write it could write and speak English, and when they asked what its name was, it said that its name was Sam, and that it was all colors, whatever that means. But because of this, they named it all colors Sam. They asked if it were a ghost, and it said, well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way. And that was it. The kids eventually went back home. They told their parents about this, and the parents, while not initially believing them, did eventually come around and believe them, but no further evidence.
¿No quedó listo, Doc?
Oh boy, I have this handsome, dumb-looking fellow in my other iceberg, and I am not looking forward to covering it again, but these things must be done, and so we will explore the encounter with Ozo 1. So it was 1974 when a 41-year-old Carl Higdon was hunting elk out in Medicine Bow National Park.
No quedó listo, Doc.
He spotted a small gang of elk, which yes, they are called a gang, pretty cool, I know, but he spots this gang, he brings up his rifle, he aims it at the largest male he can see, and then
Una lección, Jairo.
There's no kickback, there's no sound of the gun going off. Then
Una puta lección. Una puta lección. Una puta lección.
Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 6.
He just said, I'm fine. Then the alien asked him if he was hungry, gave him this little bag full of pills, which I guess would cure hunger or something, but this is a little stuff, like absolutely under no circumstances should you take from this radioactive wood. They say about their guy back the alien introduced himself, said that his name was Ozo 1, and he asked Carl if he would like to go on a trip with him in his spaceship, which was this strange box-like object that was behind Ozo 1, and Carl said, yeah, why not? And from here, there are kind of a few time skips in this one, like Carl only remembers bits and bobs from here on out, but he said that he did go with Ozo 1 in his spaceship, he did travel back to Ozo 1's planet, and he was shown around, given a tour, really nice of them, before being brought back here to Earth, and dropped off where he was. So not too much evidence for this one outside of like a single eyewitness, but like, Jesus, can we never cover this again? I never want to see this alien's face as long as I live. Fake futuristic technology. So this is a slightly odd, still quite dark, and it's probably about the theories that aliens often disguise themselves as aircraft in ways that might make them appear futuristic or fun to the people viewing. So for instance, the encounters in the 1800s seems to be more
Bienvenidos a
Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
Technology, just a bit more advanced. And even stuff like in the early 1900s, a lot of aircraft and aliens still use things
Resume. Vertical list.
Well, let's get to the city and take care of Marco quick, then.
I guess for the whole country, we expect aliens to explain the advances to use at least, if not touch screens, and maybe even telepathic control, something like that. But the theory is that this would seem absurd to make countries themselves aliens because they're so nice, just not down their appearance this way, not to scare and confuse the people that much. And so they appeared as these various things. It looks similar to something like the TARDIS, where TARDIS was this spacecraft you don't
Cross button.
guys,
Left
you might want to get downtown fast.
Swinging through Brooklyn. So you can have you on the ground with a bugle?
Still can't believe old Triple J is your new boss.
Really loving the new regime.
You'll whip him into shape in
Cross
no
button.
time.
Jump. Then hold. R2 button.
What's up with
Swing.
Marco?
Cross button.
Years since our
Left
last showdown.
hold. R2 button. Cross button. Swing jump.
I've seen people lose control like this. Be careful.
Good thing there are two Spider-Men now. Thanks, MJ.
Might need the new tech we've been cooking up too.
No way.
Resume. Vertical list.
No quedó listo, Doc.
8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close. Cross
They're
button.
untested. Barely prototypes.
Cross
Like
button.
you brought 'em, right?
Cross button. Jump. Hold. R2 button. Cross button. Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close. Resume. Vertical list. Hold. R2 button. Cross button. Swing jump.
This will often find like drawings or made up conversations between you and Satan where the aliens are just absolutely stunned and amazed and intrigued by something like Red. And honestly, it's a very refreshing, very silly, and all stuff like
Circle
discussion,
button.
this whole
Jump.
abduction,
You okay? Yeah. But I think we found him.
No quedó listo, Doc.
Circle button. Fast.
MJ wasn't kidding. We gotta help him before he hurts someone.
Circle button.
Or himself.
Maybe
he's hungry. Because we got his snack.
Limited to consoles, but there have been accounts where people are just and after your teams, they feel more energized, more happy, and have a feel their aim is either less or just plain pure. Black-eyed children are just creepy as all get out. Just because these folks, they are kids with pale skin, not unlike truly ones. They have black eyes, light blue, and they all see around nights, or they're out begging on the streets, and no demons by
No quedó listo, Doc.
L1 button. Resume. Quick settings. Gameplay. Visual. Audio. Subtitle and caption settings. Subtitles. Subtitles. Off. 1 of 2. L1 button. R1 button. L1 button. R1 button. L1
Keep him busy. I got an idea.
triangle button. Zip to target. Resume. Quick skip. Triangle button. Zip to target. Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 6. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
But what if these men in black aren't actually men? Like, what if they're not government agents? What if they are
Vertical
secretly
list.
aliens? And I have two main theories about this.
6.
One theory is that they are
Left. Resume. Left. Plus. R2 button.
shut down discussion about them so that their species may be
Supposed to be a normal day.
one theory. Another theory is that they
Left.
shape
Plus.
aliens
Plus.
are
For
and they
conversations.
live day-to-day
Teacher's lounge.
they accept they are aliens. When they don't do things, witness UFO sightings or aliens, they're actually going there because the aliens that are not
Triangle button.
shape-shifting it. They are just another aliens altogether. So these shapeshifters are going there
R2
collecting evidence from these people. Like, they knock on your door, they say, what do you see? All the shape of the grass,
Sign
what
for this
they're doing,
delivery.
what aliens do.
Coming in
They
hot.
brush off that alien,
R2
they shape all this evidence, and that allows them to build up this
Resume.
intel basically on these other aliens and on these
Square
other
button.
species. And so if they ever need to hunt these aliens down or defend themselves or anything like that, they have secretly an entire
Sit
catalog
down.
of information about every
Not
variety of
before
type
he
of alien,
bombed on my
which
dude.
personally, I like that theory a lot. It's definitely a lot more fun, and I mean, it's quite fun.
One man
That's exactly what I would do if I were a alien shape-shifting species on Canada, trying to learn about
He
other
can do
aliens.
that?
Just makes sense. Light sources, a modern physics,
Need
but
you
they
now.
have been by one of my favorite psychologists of all time, CG, and he approaches this whole topic
No quedó listo, Doc.
Principal evidence.
skeptical aliens or they have degrees in
Vertical
ufology, and young aliens will try to take the perspective, the point of view of just a psychologist, which he was, so he has a lot of expertise in that
No quedó
respect.
listo, Doc.
In why some people perceive things differently and other people have different interpretations of the same event. And how, for example, some people see the sky and perceive that to be a UFO and an alien. Some people, like Stefan from the Falcon Lake, could see a craft,
No quedó listo, Doc.
inside the craft, other people might see this evidence and genuinely believe that was an alien spacecraft, but the point is, Stefan himself didn't. And we've gone through a few entries like that, where the person has their experience, but they themselves don't claim it to be a UFO, or at least an alien UFO, and Jung was interested in why exactly that's the case. And he thought that aliens were similar to things like maybe religious experiences or ghosts or even stuff like cryptids, where not everyone always believes in these things, and say if a divine event happens to a non-religious person, they would interpret it differently to someone who is, fully religious. Jung said that these sightings seem to be quite powerful for people who believe in them, something akin to religious sightings or religious mythology, which he's kind of defining mythology as ancient stories that people tell still to this day, and they're kind of at a point where they're not really comparable, like
I mean, I'm Just running back right now!
Get back here and supervise your
Map 1 of 8. L1R1 skills 5 abilities 6 of 8. L1R1 tab list. Computer equipped abilities. Anti-venom yank. Anti-venom blast. Anti-venom strike. Anti-venom blast. Anti-venom bomb. Vertical submenu. Equip spider barrage. Anti-venom punch. Horizontal list. 3 of 3. Owned details. Anti-venom punch. Anti-venom yank. Anti-venom blast. Anti-venom strike. Vertical anti-venom blast. Anti-venom punch. Vertical list. 1 of submenu. Equip spider barrage. Anti-venom bomb. Anti-venom bomb.
Quedó listo, Doc.
Resume.
Quedó listo, Doc.
1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close. Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
As I said, they were still Christians, but believed that by rejecting their natural being, by rejecting their human nature, they would be transformed into extraterrestrials and would ascend into heaven, or as they put it, before you get the ball.
Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
Miles, Principal Evans called. Hey, you're just cutting class. I abandoned students during a citywide emergency.
Quedó listo, Doc.
Resume.
High-tech
Vertical
alien bodies, and
skip
then everything was
cinematic.
as expected. They were sent to heaven, yada yada. So in order to get their upgraded bodies as quickly as possible, they in 1997, they I can't talk about this one, but yeah, a big group of people all at the same time, all in the same building, all go up to heaven at the same time, showing the three lights, and 250 bodies of 39 members of the death on them. And the Marshal was a big like translate. You really like them. So I like that slogan. He had everyone on the property wearing these 19 jackets, and the others were identified.
Resume.
They also carried around a $5 bill and 75 cents in gold.
Quedó listo, Doc.
Resume. Vertical.
That were arrested, homeless people hanging around, which those laws were actually a thing back then. And so the idea was if you had $5 on you, you could prove that you weren't vagrant, that you were maybe a traveler or something like that. And the 3/4 was that they could call home whenever they were lost or stranded or anything like that, using a public telephone box. And so one theory about why people carried that money in their pockets was that they were basically with this event they were leaving. So they took normal money as if they were actually leaving home and traveling. So kind of
Resume.
humorous and
Vertical list.
kind of
1
strange. And they timed all this, they
6.
timed this
Cross
event for
button.
when the comic
Select.
hail box or hailing box or cover was that is closest to us. So they knew if they did this when the comic was closer, then their soul would have less traveling to do. They thought there was aliens on this comic, and then basically their beings, their soul would travel after this comic to the aliens, then they would go to heaven. And obviously that was a crazy idea and one of the most tragic, I think, short stories I've ever read. Remember a UFO is this type of UFO that instead of looking kind of like the just all sorts of shapes or cigar shape, it instead looks like a giant or triangle. One example of this is the Phoenix Light.
No quedó listo, Doc.
Where they believe, which was their belief, they believe that Earth actually created by an alien species called Elohim. And these alien species were scientists, and don't ask me how they know that, but apparently they do. And they don't believe in God per se, but they believe in Elohim. And these aliens, they say, over the years, have created these alien human hybrids. And over the years, they have sent them down to Earth to try and guide humanity. And these alien human hybrids have been people like Buddha, like Jesus, like Muhammad, and so people who follow realism basically say that Christianity is all pointing to realism, Islam is all pointing to realism, Hinduism, Buddhism, basically every religion ever is not real, that God is not real, but they're really just referencing realism. So realism is like the ultimate religion of America. The guy who founded it, is known as Jairo, and he is the holiest prophet of God. And so Jesus' prophet, the religion is called realism. And yeah, they try and practice the understanding, sharing, and scientific progress, which I'm just linking with them on the links. Also, their aim is to stop the destruction of the earth and of humanity, and to basically unite humanity. And they believe that when this happens, this will bring the Elohim back to earth, and the Elohim will then liberate all of mankind. So honestly, probably not the worst modern religion that I've seen. Peace, love, stopping nuclear war, uniting humanity. It's all going to be thumbs up from me. Aliens love the future. This is the idea that aliens, these advanced, elusive, benevolent beings, are actually human. So let's say in 500 years, humanity is still alive, and let's say we are for some reason happy to go on, we live on another planet far away, galaxies, and then when we're over there, we invent time travel. And once we invent time travel, we can travel back in time, we can come back to Earth, and the aliens that we're seeing now are basically humans from the future. And that might possibly explain why
Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 6. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
And a Facebook and you could probably pass all of them for these. And that is because, as I said, this theory says they are actually still humans, but different. So a very fun theory, I think, and it is quite heavily connected to our next century, which is aliens are there past. So in the past century, it explores aliens from the future, time traveling back to the past. But this theory explores the idea of aliens being from the past. So say we have a timeline here, and something like dinosaurs that were back here, humans are started here, and they are moving on. Aliens, what we have a large number of planets, they're not from the future. They are another intelligent species that have possibly grown and developed on Earth. They originated maybe around 2020, maybe even further back.
need a big water source by Wall Street.
R1 button.
Yankee knows all. Plus, we were super weird in class earlier.
I never should have taught it.
Triangle button.
Here it comes. What? You don't like your own face? You know today's forecast, Spider-Man?
100% chance of rain.
Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close. Triangle button. Zip to
Got
target.
him right where we want him.
Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 6. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close. Resume. Vertical list. 1 of. Triangle button. Zip. Resume. Triangle button.
No quedó listo, dos.
R2 button. Plus. Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 6. Cross button. Select.
No
Circle
quedó
button.
listo, dos.
Close. Hold R2 button plus cross button then release charge done. Resume triangle resume skip triangle button resume triangle button left triangle button zip to target circle button dodge
Still think we got it right
triangle
where we
button
want
zip
him?
to target circle button dodge triangle button zip to target
And he's definitely getting bigger.
circle button dodge resume skip
This is getting out of hand.
left stick target
What
select
happened? Stand up outside. He's calling out on me to the room. Water tanks are only shot too.
circle button dodge range to tap triangle button web strike L1 button R1 button hold Map 1 of 8 L1 skills 5 of abilities 6 missions 7 abilities 6 of venom dash vertical lift chain lightning vertical submenu equip venom punch horizontal venom punch vertical lift venom dash reverse flux vertical lift submenu equip venom smash horizontal venom smash galvanize vertical lift submenu equip venom jump horizontal venom jump vertical lift 4
Where are you, Pete?
L1 button R1 button
Guess he's busy.
R2 button plus R2 button zip to
Water
point
tank.
This is a focus ball. Heal by using a full focus ball. Fill your focus bars by attacking and defending. Press cross button to continue.
And that either he chose to stay silent or Mission Control secretly told him, keep your mouth shut, which is 10 miles to do some rockets, and yeah, that's the theory. The UFO crash on 1941 near Cape Girardeau. So this was a very odd, somewhat
Vertical
fun encounter
list
that happened in Missouri where a pastor by the name of William G.
select
Huff was
circle
called
button
out to
close.
kneel to pray for these victims, and these victims were in a plane crash or something. But this wasn't the fun. When he
No quedó listo, dos.
to these couldn't see any engines, couldn't see any wind or the planes too at this apparent plane crash site. But rather, he saw a large metal disc smashed into the ground, and he saw 3 creatures in the ground, 2 of which were dead, and 1 of which was alive. They were about 3 or 4
L2
people.
button
They were
plus
grey with
R2
large black
button
eyes
zip
and
to
long
point.
arms.
Resume vertical lift 1 of 8 cross button select circle button. Finishers are devastating attacks that cost at least 1 full focus ball. Build focus by attacking and dodging.
No quedó listo, dos.
Cross button to continue.
Why couldn't Michael just make sandcastles
And this story was
instead?
actually told through William Granville, as I guess he didn't really think about it yet. And there have been requests sent to the FBI regarding this incident and requesting information.
Come on,
And they have basically said that they
everything
can't find
okay?
any evidence that the
I'm
incident
with
ever
Pete.
occurred, and they can't find any information,
You're on
which, I
every
mean, once again,
channel.
that is not exactly what you expect in a
Triangle button,
regardless,
circle
I think it is
button,
quite a
finish.
many black origins slash Harold Garth. So the concept
He
of
is.
men in black, we
But I
the
got
concept
this
of
meeting
the
with my
real men in black.
counselor
Where does
later,
the original
and the
concept of
principal
men in
thinks
black
that I'm...
actually come from? Well, it
Listen,
sort of
I just
originates
talked to
many,
the
many years ago,
principal.
probably as
But
long
New
as there have
York
been
needs you right
popularized,
now.
especially
Una lección, Jairo. Una puta lección.
Please, be careful. Quiero, mijo.
Like Ma said, can't let New York down.
L1 button, R1 button, hold, pull. Triangle button, circle button, finisher. Triangle button, circle button, finisher. Triangle button, circle button, finisher.
And this is one of the first references to a man in black in like an alien UFO story in real life. And Kenneth Arnold, who in case we touched on a little bit earlier, his encounter of 1699 actually
shift to
Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
And secondly, because it was really similar in the craft that they
Just
saw.
what I want this one, IFA. Get advantage colors are wanted. Or
Triangle button. Circle button. Finisher.
brainstorm later, Marvel.
Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
Arctic and Antarctica, and also for his work in World War II, for volunteering to be the first person to fly solo all the way across the
Resume.
Atlantic Ocean.
Vertical
So, yeah, he was
list.
pretty
1
gnarly dude. This
of
Atlantic
8.
flight was later
Cross
terminated
button.
by
Select.
President Taylor
Circle
because he
button.
too risky
Close.
to do and said it was too dangerous and not worth it to do. So Admiral Byrd never actually went, but he did still volunteer to do it. And this at least shows how competent Admiral Byrd was as a, and of course, but out there, over 80
Resume.
million kilometers away
Vertical
from the sun,
list.
and
1
beyond the
of
course,
8.
lies the
Cross
cold
button.
oblivion of interstellar
Select.
space.
Circle
In the
button.
vast silent
Close.
expanse of the Milky Way, our solar system.
En el silencio inmenso del espacio interestelar, donde la luz de las estrellas tarda años en recorrer distancias impensables. La historia que está a punto de escuchar no comienza con una explosión ni con un cataclismo visible. Comienza, como muchas de las grandes historias cósmicas, con un punto, un susurro diminuto en la oscuridad, un destello casi imperceptible en la
Resume.
vasta tela
Vertical
negra del
list.
universo.
1
Pero lo
of
que parecía
8.
un
Cross
simple registro más en un catálogo de
L1
observaciones,
button.
pronto se
R1 button.
transformó
Hold. Pull.
en rutas y resultados.
L1 button. R1
La
button.
humanidad ha
Hold.
levantado la mirada
Pull.
al cielo con la fascinación y temor. Hemos capturado estrellas, estudiado planetas y seguido el
No quedó listo, Doc.
Pero en julio de 2025,
How's it going,
los sensores
Spider-Man?
del telescopio espacial
R2 button.
trabajaron
Plus.
con
R2 button. Zip to ground.
una red de observatorios diseñados para
Triangle
detectar
button.
objetos cercanos a la
Circle
Tierra.
button.
Captaron algo
Finisher.
que no encajaba en ningún patrón conocido. Un objeto que, en 1900 apariencia, se movía demasiado rápido y desde una dirección que ningún cuerpo de nuestro sistema solar
Triangle button.
debería tomar.
Zip to
Lo
target.
llamaron 3 Atlas. La denominación parecía
Resume.
rutinaria, un código más en la larga lista de cuerpos detectados por los astrónomos. Pero detrás de esas letras y números se escondía una incógnita que desafiaba nuestras categorías más básicas.
Software patch
Era un
wasn't
cometa.
No quedó listo, Doc.
Algo que nunca habíamos visto antes. Antes de continuar, me
Press.
encantaría que
Triangle
me escribas en los
button. Web
comentarios
wings.
desde dónde estás viendo este video.
Left
Siempre
stick
es muy
down.
especial
Right up.
saber hasta dónde llegan nuestras historias.
web wings?
Y si te está gustando el contenido, considera darle like y
But we're
suscribirte
not
al
out
canal.
of this
Left
yet.
Eso me ayuda a saber si voy por buen
Marco's
camino.
here
Y si
for
quieres
Web
más
wings
videos como
controls
este.
can be
La
inserted
primera
in game
versión
settings.
3 Atlas se presentó como un buen
Pinky
conflicto,
just
distante y
did.
silencioso. No
Left
emitía
stick
señales
down.
de radio.
Glad up.
No mostraba la brillante cola de gas y polvo que caracteriza a los cometas cuando se acercan al Sol. Sin embargo, había algo
Left
inquietante.
stick
Su
down.
brillo
Glad
fluctuaba de
up.
manera irregular, sin reflejar nada, de forma intencional. La primera estimación de su velocidad encendió las alarmas.
Press.
Más de
Triangle
200
button.
kilómetros por hora.
Web wings.
Y lo más inquietante, parecía acelerar. Para los astrónomos,
Triangle
esta cifra
button.
no
Web
solo era
wings.
impresionante, sino anómala.
Left
Objetos
stick down.
normales rara vez
Glad
muestran
up.
incrementos sostenidos de velocidad sin una
Press.
fuerza
Triangle
externa
button.
evidente.
Web
Algunos
wings.
recordaron la incidente del visitante anterior,
Circle
el misterioso Aqui, designado en 2017, que también había llegado desde más allá del sistema solar
Calm
y que
down,
mostró un comportamiento
Marco.
difícil de
Innocent
explicar.
people
Pero en
are
el
in
caso de
Circle
Tres
button.
Atlas,
Dodge.
las anomalías aparecieron desde el primer momento.
Resume.
En las salas de
Vertical
control,
list.
las
1
estaciones
of
computadoras
8.
científicas,
Cross
era
button.
esto una
Select.
roca
Circle.
interestelar que simplemente pasaba de largo, o estábamos presenciando a la observidad algo que había salido
Listen to Marco.
continuó viendo revelando detalles cada vez más extraños. Lo que hasta entonces era una observación rutinaria se convirtió en un misterio que pronto saldría del archivo científico y ocuparía titulares en
Triangle
todo el
button.
mundo.
Web wings.
Porque si 3 Atlas no era un
Triangle
cometa
button.
y
Zip
no era
to
un
target.
asteroide,
Resume.
entonces ¿qué era?
Skip.
Y más
Triangle
importante,
button.
¿por qué
Zip
estaba
to
ahí?
target.
En la penumbra controlada de un centro de monitoreo astronómico, la noche del 14 de julio de 2025 comenzó como tantas otras. Telescopios automatizados,
To add a
alineados
heal
y
or perform
calibrados,
a
escaneaban
devastating
lentamente
finisher.
franjas del
Press.
cielo,
Cross
buscando
button to
cambios
continue.
imperceptibles para el
Marco's storm is
pero
generating a
revelando
flood of
One
electricity.
directional button. Heal. Triangle button. Circle button. Resume. Vertical list. 1.
No quedó listo, Doc.
Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
capturar, comparar, descartar. Sin embargo, esa madrugada, los patrones habituales se rompieron.
Resume.
En una de las
Vertical
imágenes
list.
procesadas por el
1
sistema
of
Atlas,
8.
un punto de
Cross
luz
button.
había cambiado
Select.
de posición
Circle button.
más de lo
Close.
esperado. No era un satélite, no era un asteroide catalogado, y su movimiento no coincidía con ninguna órbita conocida. La revelación fue
Tension
causa.
of
Focus
storm.
down.
Saben que
One
las bases
directional
armadas
button.
son
Heal.
comunes.
Triangle
Reflejos y errores de
button. Circle
captación o
button.
incluso
Finisher.
pequeñas interferencias pueden producir
Triangle
resultados
button.
inesperados.
Zip to
Pero al
target.
superponer previsiones más rápidas que la diferencia, la trayectoria revela algo inusual.
L1 button.
Parecía
R1
llegar desde
button.
una dirección
Resume.
completamente ajena al plano
L
orbital
triangle
del planeta.
button.
Se calculó rápidamente
Circle
su
button.
velocidad inicial. La cifra sorprendió incluso a los más experimentados. Más de 200.000
Advanced
kilómetros por hora,
suit
número que
grid.
superaba
Target
ampliamente lo
recent.
registrado en la
Classics
mayoría de los
advanced
objetos
suit
menores del sistema
2.0
solar.
grid.
A esa
Row 1.
velocidad,
Item
cualquier error
1
de cálculo
of
se
4
magnificaba,
owned.
por lo que
Suit
era crucial
size
obtener más
owned.
datos.
Right
El
class
equipo contactó con los
advanced
dos
suit
observatorios de
grid.
la red
Row 2.
internacional
Item
solicitando
3
confirmaciones
of 4
independientes. No pasó
affordable
mucho tiempo
cost.
antes de que
Spark
las
class
respuestas
advanced
comenzaran a
suit
llegar. Desde
2.0
Hawái
grid.
hasta
Row
las Islas
1.
Canarias,
Classic
las mediciones
advanced
coincidían.
suit grid.
El objeto
Row
era
2.
real y lo más
Classic
inquietante,
advanced suit
su velocidad
2.0
mostraba
grid.
ligeras
Classic
variaciones
suit.
ascendentes. El
Advanced
James
suit
Webb, con su
2.0
posición
grid.
privilegiada en el
Row.
espacio profundo,
Classic
fue
advanced
rápidamente
suit
orientado
grid.
hacia las
Amazing
coordenadas.
2 suit
En cuestión de
grid.
horas,
Row
sus
3.
instrumentos
Item
ópticos e
3
infrarrojos
of 4
comenzaron a registrar la
affordable
luz
cost.
reflejada por el
35
misterioso
amazing
viajero.
suit grid.
No había
Row
señales
3.
espectrales
Item
claras de
2
gases
of
volátiles,
4
como cabía
amazing 2
esperar de
suit
un cometa
grid.
activo.
Row
Tampoco
3.
aparecían las
Entire
características
suitcases
emisiones
grid.
térmicas que
Row
delatan a los
4. Item
asteroides bañados por la
spider
radiación solar.
grid.
Mientras
Homo
tanto,
suit
en las
grid.
pantallas de de los analistas, el brillo del objeto parecía seguir un patrón errático, picos y caídas en intervalos irregulares, como si algo en su superficie estuviera girando de forma asimétrica, o modulando la luz que reflejaba. Esa peculiaridad captó la atención de más de un científico, pues recordaba comportamientos observados en estructuras artificiales en órbita terrestre. En cuestión de horas, lo que había empezado como un hallazgo menor pasó a ser prioridad. Se organizó una sesión de observación continua, involucrando telescopios terrestres y espaciales. Cada minuto contaba, porque el objeto avanzaba rápido hacia la región interna del sistema solar. La pregunta ya no era únicamente qué era 3i Atlas, sino cuánto tiempo permanecería a nuestro alcance para ser estudiado. La historia de Oumuamua, que cruzó fugazmente nuestras cercanías antes de desaparecer en la luna, estaba fresca en la memoria de todos. Mientras la madrugada daba paso a la luz tenue del amanecer, los primeros informes consolidados llegaban a los escritorios de los directores de observatorio, y entre gráficos, tablas y mapas de trayectoria, una certeza comenzaba a tomar forma. No estábamos ante un simple visitante. Este objeto parecía tener un propósito, y las siguientes mediciones revelarían pistas aún más desconcertantes sobre su verdadera naturaleza. En los días siguientes, las observaciones se multiplicaron. Cada nuevo conjunto de datos parecía confirmar que 3i Atlas no encajaba en ninguna de las categorías tradicionales que la astronomía utiliza para clasificar a los visitantes terrestres. Su comportamiento desafiaba no solo las expectativas, sino también las leyes físicas que solemos aplicar a cuerpos inertes del espacio. Lo primero que llamó la atención fue la ausencia de una coma o cola. Los cometas, incluso aquellos que provienen de regiones lejanas, como la nube de Oort, comienzan a liberar gas o polvo cuando se acercan al sol. El calor provoca la sublimación del hielo y el material expulsado forma estructuras visibles que, además, permiten determinar su composición. Pero en este caso, nada de eso ocurrió. El objeto permanecía sorprendentemente limpio, sin rastros evidentes de actividad cometaria. En lugar de una liberación de material, lo que los instrumentos detectaron fue un patrón de reflectividad extrañamente variable. En algunas mediciones, el albedo, la fracción de luz que refleja, parecía aumentar de forma repentina, para luego disminuir en cuestión de minutos. Este comportamiento no podía atribuirse únicamente a rotaciones irregulares o a una geometría inusual. Había algo más detrás de esas fluctuaciones. El espectro obtenido por el James Webb aportó más interrogantes. Normalmente, un cometa revela picos claros continentes de onda asociadas con el agua, el dióxido de carbono o compuestos orgánicos volátiles. Sin embargo, el espectro de 3i Atlas resultaba casi blanco, interrumpido apenas por leves anomalías en frecuencias que, hasta el momento, no habían sido observadas en cuerpos naturales. A esto se sumaba un factor aún más extraño: la aceleración no gravitacional. Pequeños cambios en la velocidad podían explicarse si el objeto liberara gases que actuaran como propulsión, pero sin evidencia de ese escape, las opciones se volvían más limitadas. Algunos conocieron que se trataba de un efecto Yarkovsky extremo, un cambio de velocidad debido a la emisión desigual de calor, pero la magnitud del fenómeno parecía excesiva para explicarlo así. En paralelo, la comunidad científica comenzó a dividirse. Mientras algunos defendían una explicación puramente natural, otros empezaban a considerar hipótesis más aplicadas. La idea de que estuviéramos observando un artefacto interestelar fabricado por una inteligencia avanzada ya no era exclusiva de las conversaciones informales. Los datos de radar, obtenidos con gran dificultad por su lejanía y velocidad, ofrecieron imágenes borrosas pero intrigantes. Un contorno alargado, quizás irregular, con proporciones que no coincidían con la típica forma de un asteroide. Esta silueta despertó inevitablemente
No quedó listo, Doc.
las artificiales conocidas, aunque todavía era pronto para afirmarlo. Mientras la información se acumulaba, aumentaba la presión por las ventanas de observación eran limitadas. Cada día que pasaba, el objeto se desplazaba hacia zonas del cielo más difíciles de estudiar. El equipo del web programó sesiones adicionales, priorizando el seguimiento sobre otras misiones, algo poco común y que evidenciaba la importancia que se les daba. Era evidente que 3i Atlas no se comportaba como nada que pudiéramos visual. La pregunta ya no era si un visitante interesado.
Hold on a sec, Miles.
Estábamos preparados para aplicar la comunicación normal. Pronto, las imágenes de la visitante de años anteriores podrían se dio una perspectiva aún más inquietante. En 2017, el telescopio Park Stars en Hawái detectó un objeto extraño que atravesaba el sistema solar. Oumuamua, su forma alargada, su trayectoria hiperbólica y una aceleración sutil pero inexplicable lo convirtieron en un misterio inmediato. No tenía cola de cometa, pero tampoco el comportamiento térmico típico de un asteroide. En aquel momento, las explicaciones oscilaron entre lo natural y lo extraordinario.
Cute, but wait.
Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 6.
I'm gonna try a workaround.
Algunos científicos lo catalogaron como un fragmento interestelar e inusual. Otros, como el astrofísico Avi Loeb, propusieron que podría tratarse de tecnología alienígena, quizá una vela de luz abandonada por una civilización lejana. Su postura provocó controversia, pero también había un debate que nunca se acabó del todo. Ahora con 3i Atlas, las coincidencias son imposibles de ignorar. Ambas trayectorias muestran orígenes externos al sistema solar, velocidades elevadas y cambios de aceleración no explicados por fuerzas conocidas. Ambos carecen de emisiones gaseosas detectables y presentan patrones de brillo que parecen modulados. En las comparaciones lado a lado, los datos son reveladores. Mientras Oumuamua medía aproximadamente 400 metros de longitud, 3i Atlas podría alcanzar hasta 20 kilómetros de diámetro, lo que lo haría enormemente más masivo y potencialmente más capaz de albergar estructuras internas. Además, su acercamiento incluye pasos cercanos a planetas clave, algo que algunos interpretan como maniobras de reconocimiento. El recuerdo de Oumuamua pesa sobre los investigadores. Entonces, el visitante se alejó demasiado rápido para permitir estudios detallados. Con 3i Atlas existe la posibilidad de aprender mucho más. Si se actúa a tiempo, la presión por recopilar datos antes de su partida es enorme. En reuniones privadas, algunos científicos han sugerido que 3i Atlas podría no ser un evento aislado, sino parte de una serie de sondas que viajan entre sistemas estelares, recopilando información. Si esa hipótesis es cierta, Oumuamua podría haber sido simplemente el primer indicio de un patrón más amplio. Sin embargo, las implicaciones de asumir un origen artificial siguen siendo incómodas para la mayoría. Reconocer esa posibilidad implicaría aceptar que no estamos solos y que además podríamos estar siendo observados. Por eso, las comparaciones con el caso de 2017 generan tanto interés como resistencia. A medida que las similitudes se acumulan, también lo hace el interés mediático. Documentales, artículos y debates televisivos comienzan a trazar paralelos, presionando a las agencias espaciales a pronunciarse. Pero la cautela domina las declaraciones oficiales. Se habla de objeto interestelar atípico, de investigación en curso, evitando cualquier alusión directa a inteligencia extraterrestre. Mientras tanto, 3i Atlas sigue avanzando, su brillo irregular registrándose en cada observatorio que logra captar. El pasado con Oumuamua sirve de advertencia, pues limita aquel y cada segundo de observación podría ser crucial para desentrañar su naturaleza. Las próximas mediciones, especialmente las que rastreen su ruta y velocidad con precisión, podrían revelar si este visitante viaja por azar o por diseño. Avi Loeb, profesor de astrofísica en la Universidad de Harvard, recibió los primeros reportes sobre 3i Atlas con una mezcla de familiaridad y alerta. Su nombre ya estaba ligado a las interpretaciones más atrevidas del fenómeno. Ahora, ante un visitante aún más extraño, sus hipótesis volvían a cobrar protagonismo. Para Loeb, las coincidencias no podían ignorarse. Origen interestelar, aceleración gravitacional, ausencia de cola cometaria y variaciones de brillo sugerentes de un patrón. En entrevistas y conferencias privadas comenzó a plantear lo que para muchos resultaba provocador. Tal vez 3i Atlas no era una roca errante, sino una sonda construida por alguna civilización avanzada, enviada para explorar o recopilar información. Si una civilización tecnológica quisiera explorar el cosmos sin arriesgarse a viajes tripulados, podría enviar sondas automatizadas, programadas para recorrer distancias interestelares y activarse al encontrar sistemas con actividad biológica. Este concepto, que hasta hace unos años parecía ciencia ficción, se había convertido en tema de debate serio gracias a la detección de objetos como Oumuamua. Si me permites una pequeña pausa, cuéntame en los comentarios. ¿Estás viendo este video en una tarde tranquila o mientras te preparas para dormir? Y si no es mucha molestia, aprovecha para suscribirte al canal. Eso me ayuda a seguir trayéndote historias como esta. La propuesta de Loeb se apoyaba en varios puntos específicos de los datos recopilados. El cambio sutil pero consistente en la trayectoria, imposible de explicar únicamente por interacciones gravitacionales conocidas. El patrón de reflectividad, que podía ser interpretado como una superficie diseñada para acumular la radiación solar o para transmitir información. La aparente ausencia de erosión típica de objetos que vagan durante millones de años por el espacio, como si estuviera protegido o compuesto por materiales excepcionalmente resistentes. Sin embargo, su posición enfrentó resistencia inmediata. Colegas argumentaron que la ciencia debía buscar explicaciones naturales antes de recurrir a hipótesis extraordinarias. La historia de la astronomía está llena de fenómenos que parecían artificiales, hasta que nuevas observaciones los explicaron mediante procesos físicos convencionales. A pesar de las críticas, Loeb mantenía su postura, recordando que lo extraordinario no debía descartarse solo por incomodidad intelectual. Según él, negar la posibilidad de un origen artificial por principio equivalía a cerrar la puerta a una de las preguntas más profundas de la humanidad. ¿Estamos solos? El debate no tardó en expandirse más allá de los círculos académicos. Medios de comunicación de todo el mundo recogieron las declaraciones del astrofísico, provocando tanto entusiasmo como escepticismo en la opinión pública. Las redes sociales amplificaron cada argumento, cada contraargumento, convirtiendo a 3i Atlas en un tema viral. Mientras tanto, los equipos de observación continuaban enviando datos. La evidencia, aunque aún incompleta, parecía reforzar la necesidad de seguir estudiando. Quienes rechazaban la hipótesis de Loeb coincidían en que su comportamiento merecía atención prioritaria. En las siguientes semanas, un análisis más detallado de la ruta de 3i Atlas revelaría un patrón aún más intrigante, como si su paso por el sistema solar obedeciera a un itinerario cuidadosamente calculado. Esa revelación aumentaría aún más las sospechas de un propósito deliberado detrás de su viaje. Cuando los astrónomos comenzaron a trazar la trayectoria exacta de 3i Atlas, esperaban encontrar una ruta simple, producto de la influencia gravitacional del Sol y sus planetas. Sin embargo, los primeros modelos computacionales ofrecieron algo muy diferente, un camino que parecía demasiado preciso para ser casual. El objeto había ingresado al sistema solar desde una inclinación pronunciada respecto al plano eclíptico, evitando interacciones significativas con el cinturón de Kuiper. Luego, su curso lo llevó cerca de la órbita de Venus a una distancia que permitía obtener datos detallados del planeta sin riesgo de colisión. Semanas después, repitió un patrón similar con Marte, ajustando su velocidad y ángulo de aproximación, de manera que los expertos describieron como extrañamente óptimos para un reconocimiento visual y espectral. Pero lo más desconcertante,
purple rain suit, into the Spider-Verse suit, grid, row 5, item, into the Spider-Verse SB suit, grid, row 5, item, 2, crimson tile suit, locked, grid, locked, grid, uptown pride suit, grid.
Aprovechó el momento para realizar lo que los técnicos podrían describirse como una maniobra de asistencia gravitatoria. Este tipo de maniobra es común en sondas espaciales humanas para ganar velocidad o cambiar de dirección sin gastar combustible. La idea de que un objeto natural realizara algo tan preciso parecía improbable. Los equipos de dinámica orbital revisaron una y otra vez sus cálculos. No había indicios de errores en las mediciones. La ruta se mantenía consistente en todos los modelos, incluso al incorporar las mismas variaciones registradas por observatorios terrestres y espaciales. En reuniones internas, algunos científicos comenzaron a hablar abiertamente de la posibilidad de que el itinerario de 3i Atlas estuviera programado o predeterminado. Si se trataba de un artefacto, su uso sugería que buscaba maximizar la recolección de datos de los principales cuerpos del sistema solar antes de acercarse a la Tierra. Los detractores de esta idea argumentaban que, aunque la trayectoria era llamativa, aún podía explicarse por combinaciones fortuitas de gravedad planetaria y velocidad inicial. No obstante, incluso ellos admitían que las coincidencias se acumulaban de manera incómoda. En paralelo, las simulaciones de proyección orbital indicaron que, tras su paso cercano a nuestro planeta, el objeto seguiría un camino que lo sacaría del sistema solar en dirección a una zona del espacio con escasa densidad estelar, lo que parecía extraño para un cuerpo sin rumbo. Tras la comunidad científica, discutía la narrativa pública comenzaba a tomar forma. Programas de televisión, podcasts y artículos de divulgación describían a 3i Atlas como el explorador silencioso o el visitante capturador. La idea de un viajero interestelar siguiendo un plan minucioso capturaba la imaginación de millones, pero para los investigadores lo más urgente era el siguiente paso, analizar en detalle qué estaba hecho este objeto. Si su ruta levantaba sospechas, su composición podría ofrecer la prueba definitiva para confirmar o descartar un origen artificial. Lo que encontrarían a continuación solo aumentaría el misterio. El análisis espectral de 3i Atlas comenzó tan pronto como el James Webb y varios observatorios terrestres lograron aislar su luz del fondo estelar. El procedimiento habitual para identificar la composición de cometas y asteroides se basaba en descomponer la luz reflejada y buscar firmas químicas conocidas. En teoría, los resultados deberían haber revelado la presencia presencia de
Resume.
hielo de agua,
Skip.
dióxido de carbono,
Hold. Square
metano
button.
o
Air
silicatos,
launch.
tal como ocurre en la mayoría de los cuerpos
Square
que viajan
button.
desde las
Air
regiones
attack.
frías del espacio.
Steven,
Sin embargo,
weapons.
el espectro que llegó a las
Not on
pantallas de
my
los
watch.
científicos rompió con todas las expectativas. En vez de las clásicas líneas de absorción y emisión que indican elementos
Whose idea was it to have a gun club in the city?
casi caótico, con picos y valles que no coincidían con ninguna base de datos existente. Algunas frecuencias parecían desplazadas, como si algo
I
estuviera
think I'm
alterando
gonna
la
start a
concentración.
petition.
Uno de los aspectos más
Replace all the
desconcertantes
gun
era la
clubs
ausencia
with
total de
something
señales claras de
better.
compuestos volátiles. Esto descartaba de inmediato la hipótesis de un cometa inactivo.
Like a compliment club.
Por el contrario, ciertos
Compliments
tramos del
don't hurt
espectro estaban
anyone,
característicos
and
de
they're
materiales
free.
metálicos altamente puros, algo que en el
For
cuerpo
example,
mortal sería
you
extremadamente
take a
raro
punch
y difícil de
really
observar
well.
durante
Good
millones de
job.
años. La exposición al espacio interestelar. En paralelo, se detectaron microvariaciones en la intensidad lumínica que parecían referirse a intervalos regulares. Estos cambios no podían explicarse únicamente por una rotación irregular, ya que la periodicidad sugería una fuente controlada. Algunos especialistas en señales ópticas comenzaron a especular que el brillo podría estar modulándose de forma intencionada, quizá como un subproducto de algún mecanismo interno. Para intentar explicar estas anomalías, se realizaron simulaciones comparando la luz reflejada por 3i Atlas con la de objetos conocidos, incluyendo satélites artificiales, sondas espaciales y restos de naves en órbita terrestre. Sorprendentemente, algunos parámetros coincidían más con estructuras hechas por humanos que con asteroides o cometas. A medida que estos hallazgos se difundían dentro de la comunidad científica, las discusiones se volvían más intensas. Los partidarios de una explicación natural sugerían que la superficie del objeto podría estar cubierta de minerales exóticos o de una capa vítrea creada por impactos pasados. Los más atrevidos planteaban que estábamos observando una superficie diseñada, quizás para reflejar o absorber radiación de manera específica. La falta de consenso no hacía más que incrementar la urgencia por obtener datos adicionales. El James Webb programó observaciones de longitudes de onda aún más precisas, mientras que radiotelescopios en Australia y Sudáfrica intentaban captar cualquier emisión electromagnética. Lo que todos sabían era que si había una respuesta definitiva, estaría en la interacción entre esa superficie misteriosa y la luz que emitía o reflejaba. Pero antes de que estas investigaciones concluyeran, un nuevo patrón detectado en las oscilaciones del brillo llevaría la discusión a un territorio mucho más provocador, el de un posible mensaje codificado. El hallazgo llegó casi por accidente. Mientras un grupo de astrónomos analizaba las variaciones de brillo de 3i Atlas para estimar su rotación, un joven investigador notó algo peculiar. Las oscilaciones no parecían del todo aleatorias. Existía una repetición sutil, un intervalo que se repetía con una regularidad inquietante. En un principio, se pensó que podría ser un efecto instrumental o un artefacto producido por la atmósfera terrestre. Sin embargo, al comparar datos de diferentes observatorios y del James Webb, la coincidencia era exacta. Incluso con metodologías y equipos distintos, la cadencia del patrón permanecía inalterada. La señal no era obvia a simple vista. Las fluctuaciones tenían amplitudes mínimas, casi perdidas entre el ruido de las mediciones. Pero al aplicar filtros matemáticos y análisis de Fourier, emergía una estructura, picos y pausas que se repetían en secuencias proporcionales. Los especialistas en procesamiento de señales comenzaron a hablar de modulación intencional. Esta hipótesis, aunque especulativa, se apoyaba en un argumento sólido. Los procesos naturales, como la rotación irregular de un asteroide, tienden a producir variaciones caóticas o periódicas simples. Lo que se veía en 3i Atlas era más complejo, como si obedeciera a un conjunto de instrucciones. Se invitó entonces a criptógrafos y matemáticos especializados en patrones. Tras semanas de trabajo, propusieron que la secuencia podía interpretarse como una codificación binaria basada en la duración de los pulsos y los intervalos de silencio relativo. No había un mensaje claro, ninguna traducción obvia, pero la estructura poseía simetrías y repeticiones que recordaban a los principios de la matemática universal. El hallazgo filtrado a la prensa provocó una ola de teorías. Algunos insinuaron que se trataba de un método de comunicación, una especie de saludo interestelar. Otros advirtieron que podía ser simplemente el subproducto de un mecanismo interno, como un sistema de control térmico o de estabilización. En paralelo, surgió un debate más profundo. Si realmente era un código, estaba dirigido a nosotros, o era parte de una comunicación entre el objeto y otro punto del espacio. Esta segunda posibilidad resultaba aún más intrigante, ya que sugería que 3i Atlas no actuaba de forma aislada. Mientras se discutía el significado, se intentaron experimentos para responder al patrón. Con potentes láseres ópticos y emisiones de radio, algunos grupos independientes reprodujeron secuencias similares, apuntando hacia la trayectoria del objeto. No hubo respuesta evidente, o al menos no en las frecuencias que podíamos monitorear. En el seno de los equipos oficiales, la prudencia dominaba. Cualquier anuncio prematuro podía desatar una reacción pública imprevisible. Sin embargo, internamente, la hipótesis de que estábamos frente a un artefacto con algún tipo de protocolo de señalización ganó fuerza. Pero antes de que pudieran profundizar en esta línea, un resultado inesperado de los radiotelescopios complicaría aún más la interpretación. La confirmación de un silencio absoluto en las frecuencias conocidas, como si el objeto de forma deliberada evitara cualquier transmisión convencional detectable desde la Tierra. Los radiotelescopios de todo el mundo, desde el gigantesco FAST en China hasta las antenas de la Atacama en Chile, fueron sintonizados hacia 3i Atlas con una misión clara: detectar cualquier emisión de radio que pudiera delatar actividad tecnológica. La expectativa era que, si el objeto emitía señales, aparecerían en algún rango del espectro electromagnético que conocemos. Durante semanas, las antenas recopilaron terabytes de datos. Cada frecuencia fue escaneada con extrema precisión, desde las más bajas utilizadas para comunicaciones profundas hasta las microondas y ondas milimétricas. El resultado, sin embargo, fue tan sorprendente como frustrante. Silencio absoluto, ningún anómalo, ninguna mutación sospechosa, nada que se apartara del orden natural del universo. Para algunos, este hallazgo era la prueba definitiva de que 3i Atlas era simplemente un hueco interno. Pero para otros, la ausencia de señal no despertaba su origen artificial. Al contrario, podía indicar que, si se trataba de un artefacto, estaba utilizando un método de comunicación fuera de nuestro alcance. Después de todo, la radio es solo una fractal minúscula de un espectro casi infinito de posibilidades. Los más cautelosos recordaban que en ingeniería avanzada existen conceptos como la comunicación cuántica o el uso de haces dirigidos en frecuencias exóticas invisibles para receptores convencionales. Incluso se planteó la posibilidad necesidad
Swipe
de que el
left.
objeto no
Touchpad,
transmitiera en
swipe
absoluto,
left.
sino que
Open
operara de
FMS
modo
app.
pasivo, recopilando información y almacenándola para enviarla más tarde, quizá a miles de años luz de distancia. Mientras este debate se intensificaba, algunos datos secundarios comenzaron a llamar la atención. En
We
momentos
don't
muy
need
específicos,
anything
coincidiendo
fancy.
con
We
observaciones
just need to
ópticas
see
masivas,
citizen
los
reports.
instrumentos registraban ligeras fluctuaciones en el
While
ruido
the
de
patch
fondo,
is
como si
updating,
algo bloqueara
you
o
should widen
absorbiera
your net.
una mínima fracción de
Let's
radiación.
check in with
No era
Miles.
suficiente para llamarlo
Hold
señal,
square
pero
button.
tampoco podía
Switch
explicarse
to Miles.
fácilmente como un fenómeno natural. La hipótesis más prudente indicaba que se trataba de interferencias causadas por la propia instrumentación o por fenómenos atmosféricos en la Tierra. Sin embargo,
Resume.
un grupo reducido de investigadores argumentó que el patrón podía ser deliberado, un
Miles,
silencio activo, destinado a evitar detección
Get
por
to the roof
frecuencias
of that
convencionales
building
mientras se
nearby.
ejecutaba alguna otra función. El público, ajeno a la mayoría de estas
Hold
discusiones
R2
técnicas,
button.
comenzaba a
Plus
impacientarse.
button.
Tras la
Then
euforia
release.
inicial por el
Charge down.
descubrimiento, el hermetismo de las agencias espaciales
Resume.
alimentaba
Vertical
rumores y
lift.
teorías de todo
1
tipo.
of
En
8.
foros y
Cross
redes
button.
sociales, la
Select.
narrativa de
Circle
el
button.
visitante
Close.
silencioso se imponía. Para los equipos científicos, el silencio no era un final, sino una nueva pista. Si
Resume.
3i Atlas
Vertical
no hablaba en las
lift. 1
frecuencias que
of
esperábamos,
8.
tal vez su
Cross
comunicación
button.
no estaba
Select.
destinada a
Circle
nosotros,
button.
o tal vez
Close.
ya había emitido su mensaje y no lo habíamos notado. Fue entonces cuando algunos empezaron a considerar una hipótesis inquietante. ¿Y si este objeto no había venido para transmitir, sino para observar, esperando el momento preciso para
Resume.
actuar o
Vertical
simplemente
lift.
registrar
1
lo que
of
encontrara?
8.
Esa
Cross
posibilidad
button.
pronto se enlazaría
Select.
con otra
Circle
idea aún
button.
más provocadora,
Close.
que 3i Atlas no era joven, sino una reliquia tecnológica milenaria que solo se activaba en presencia de vida inteligente. La idea de que 3i Atlas pudiera ser un artefacto antiguo comenzó a ganar tracción en ciertos círculos académicos y militares. No era una suposición sin fundamento. En astrobiología teórica existe el concepto de sondas durmientes, dispositivos enviados por civilizaciones avanzadas para recorrer distancias interestelares durante miles o incluso
Select. Circle button. Close.
It sounds great, right? A smooth next generation experience. Here's the truth. Only one game supports it so far. And that is the $10 tech demo called Welcome Tour. Not even Mario Kart World, their own flagship launch game, uses it, which is really disappointing. This is classic Nintendo. Advertise cutting edge tech and then never use it. Speaking of Mario Kart World, it's the only real first-party launch title, and it's mid at best. They completely messed with the formula. One-lap races, highway intermissions, and stripped-down gameplay. Even if you like it, it's all we got, one game. Beyond that, just ports of Switch 1 games, or weaker versions of games that you played on consoles or PCs elsewhere. And here's the kicker. Nintendo wants you to pay $10 extra for each Switch 2 upgrade. There's a few free ones out there, but the ones you actually care about cost money.
Hold
Breath of the Wild, Tears
R2
of the Kingdom
button.
cost
Plus.
$10 each to
Cross
upgrade.
button.
So if
Then
you already
release.
own a library of
Charge
Switch
down.
games, you're paying again just to play them with a better frame rate. Now let's talk about the price. The console is $450, and first-party games like Mario Kart World are starting out at $80. That's more than the PlayStation 5 digital cost for a handheld that's not even that powerful. And what do you get for that price? Not a new look, that's for sure. The UI is almost identical to the original Switch. No better portability. The battery life is worse than every previous Switch model. Just 2.5 hours of gameplay. And yes, the battery also drains in sleep mode. And talking about that UI, I know some of you guys are going to say that does Switch 1 and Switch 2. Of course, the UI is going to be the same. But you guys realize that between the DS Lite, the DSi, and the 3DS, they were all completely different UIs. And each time you booted up a new one, it honestly felt like a brand new console. It felt, wow, it looked amazing. They could do something similar. Like, I feel like it would have been really easy for them to throw in. And somehow they made the battery the worst battery in the entire Switch family. And they paired it with a downgraded LCD screen, even after hyping up the OLED on their last gen. You know they're saving the OLED Switch 2 for later. They're going to charge like $600 for it. And remember Joy-Con drift? Yeah, there are already early reports of stick drift on the new model. They swore that they fixed this. It clearly isn't. Hopefully it's just a couple of Switches having early issues, but there's already been reports, which is not really a good sign. And if that wasn't enough, they've added tamper protection so aggressive that people are getting bricked consoles for inserting normal SD cards. I'm not totally against them breaking consoles that are doing illegal stuff, but they got to make sure that people who are doing normal stuff don't get screwed over. Nintendo's trying to block the modding community, and that's whatever, but it's backfiring big time and hurting normal players, and that's honestly just unacceptable. And then we have the $10 tech demo. Nintendo saw Ashern's Playroom on the PS5 and said, hey, everybody loves that, let's do that. Except they forgot that it was free, and it was awesome. This one looks completely terrible. And again, they're charging you for it. All it is just shows you the features of the Switch 2, and they're charging $10 for it. Absolutely insane, super greedy move by Nintendo. So what are you paying for? You're not paying for cutting-edge power. The Switch 2 just barely catches up to where the original should have been. It's not even trying to compete with other next-gen consoles because it clearly can't. It's just avoiding being left completely in the dust. I'm telling you guys, if you really just compare it to the Switch 1 and how powerful that console was in comparison to its generation, they're basically just back to square one. They're not really making it any more powerful in terms of current gen. It's a lot more powerful than the Switch 1. But once again, they already have an insane amount of catching up to do, and they only halfway made it there. Don't get me wrong though, it's not all bad. If you love Mario Kart or want to replay the Zelda games at 60 FPS, which is awesome, maybe it's worth it for you. But for most people, this isn't a big leap forward. It's a $450 reminder that Nintendo can get away with doing the absolute bare minimum and everybody's going to go along with it. If you're still on the fence, I would say maybe wait for more games, or if you want to wait even longer, inevitably they're going to have an OLED upgraded console, hopefully with better battery life, because this battery life is honestly embarrassing. I mean, 2.5 hours is supposed to be affordable. This thing's going to be dead before you even get traveling wherever it is you're going. I do want to be 100% clear though, the Switch 2 is obviously way better than the Switch 1. It is 4K for the first time ever. It does have 120 Hz, I guess, if you want to count that. I'm not really going to count that, to be honest. But at least it can run normal games at 60 FPS, which is something Switch 1 couldn't even do. Even on their own first-party titles like Breath of the Wild, there were frame rate drops left and right. So obviously, this is a much-needed improvement. But what I'm saying is they just did the bare minimum, and it's not exactly catching up.
If you stay in the path, we'll get a stronger
in my
signal.
opinion, I know everybody thought this was going to be like a PS4 Pro or higher. In my opinion, it's like the power of a PS4, which is kind of cool. You know, it's portable, but like the PS4 is really old. So how much credit do you really want to give them? Question mark. Let me know down below how you guys feel. If you have one, let me know how you're feeling about it. If you don't have one, let me know what you're thinking about. Are you going to get one, or you're on the fence still? Let me know what you guys think. Everybody is the true epic gamer here. Today, I want to talk about when Switch 2 kind of sucks. And I'm going to tell you why. At first glance, it seems like a solid
Left stick.
upgrade, but underneath, it's full of baffling choices and disappointing compromises. Let's start with one of the biggest marketing flaws that Nintendo used. They're bragging about the 120 Hz. It sounds great, right? A smooth next generation experience. But here's the truth. Only one game supports it so far. It has the $10 tech demo called Welcome to It.
Okay,
Not even Mario Kart World,
local
their own
network
flagship
disconnected.
launch game, used to, which is really disappointing. This is classic Nintendo. Advertise cutting-edge tech and then never use it. Speaking of Mario Kart World, it's the only real first-party launch title, and it's mid at best. They completely messed with the formula, one-lap races, highway intermissions, and stripped down gameplay. It's all we got, one game. Beyond that, just port the Switch 1 games, or weaker versions of games played on consoles or PC elsewhere. And here's the kicker. Nintendo wants you to pay $10 extra for these Switch 2 upgrade. There's a few free ones out there, but the ones you actually care about cost money. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom cost $10 each to upgrade. So if you already own a library of Switch games, you're paying again just to play them with a better frame rate. Now let's talk about the price. The console is $450, and first-party games like Mario Kart World are starting out at $80. That's more than the PlayStation 5 digital cost for a handheld that's not even that powerful. And what do you get for that price? Not a new look, that's for sure. The UI is almost identical to the original Switch. No better portability. The battery life is worse than every previous Switch model. Just 2.5 hours of gameplay. And yes, the battery also drains in sleep. And talking about that UI, I know some of you guys are going to say that between Switches, of course, the UI is going to be the same. But you guys realize that between the DS Lite, the DSi, and the 3DS, they were all completely different UIs. And each time you boot up a new one, it honestly felt like a brand new console. It felt, wow, it looked amazing. They can do something simple. I feel like it would have been really easy for them to throw in. Somehow they made the battery the worst battery in the entire Switch ever, and they paired it with a downgraded LCD screen, even after hyping up the OLED on their last gen. You know they're saving the OLED Switch 2 for later. They're going to charge like $600 for it. And remember Joy Contra? Yeah, there are already early reports of stick drift on the new model. They swore they fixed this. It clearly isn't. Hopefully it's just a couple of Switches having early issues, but there's already been reports, which is not really a good sign. And if that wasn't enough, they've added tamper protection so aggressive that people are getting breaking consoles for inserting normal SD cards. I'm not totally against them breaking consoles that are doing illegal stuff, but they gotta make sure that people who are doing normal stuff don't get screwed over. Nintendo's trying to block the modding community, that's whatever, but it's backfiring big time and hurting normal players, that's honestly just unacceptable. Then we have the $10 tech demo. Nintendo saw Astro's Playroom on the PS5 and said, hey, everybody loves that, let's do that. Except they forgot that it was free, and it was awesome. This one looks completely terrible.
Una lección, Jairo, una puta lección.
I'm making my promise.
Absolutely insane, super greedy move by Nintendo. So what are you paying for? You're not paying for cutting edge power. The Switch 2 just barely catches up with the original it should have been. It's not even trying to compete with other next-gen consoles because it clearly can't. It's just avoiding being left completely in the dust.
Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 7. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
In terms of current gen, it's a lot more powerful than the Switch 1. But once again, they already have an insane amount of catching up to do, and
Vertical
they only
list.
halfway made it
1
there.
of
Don't get me wrong
7.
though, it's
Cross
not all
button.
bad. If
Select.
you love Mario
Circle
Kart
button.
for one replay zone, which is awesome.
Resume. Twist.
Make it
Play
worth it
just
for you.
before
But
and
for
melee
most people,
impact to
this
stagger
is a
the
big
enemy.
leap forward.
An
It's a
early play will be
$450
less
fine,
effective.
but Nintendo can get away with
Cross
doing the
button
absolute
to
bare
continue.
minimum, and everybody's going to go along. If you're still on the fence, honestly, they can wait for 4 games. Or if you wait longer, inevitably they're going to have an OLED upgraded console. Hopefully with better battery life, because this battery life is honestly embarrassing. 2.5 hours is supposed to be fun. This thing's going to be dead before you can get traveling wherever it is you're
Circle
going.
button.
I
Finish
do
it.
want to be 100% clear though, the Switch 2 is obviously way better than the Switch 1. It is 4K for the first time ever. It does have 120 Hz. I guess if you want to count that. I'm not really going to count that, to be honest. But at least it can run normal games at 60 FPS, which is something the Switch 1 couldn't even do. Even though they're all first-party titles like Breath of the Wild, there were frame rate drops left and right. So obviously, this is a much needed improvement. But what I'm saying is they just did the bare minimum, and it's not exactly catching up to the next gen or this gen. In my opinion, I know everybody thought this was going to be like a PS4 Pro or higher. In my opinion, it's like the power of a PS4, which is kind of cool. You know, it's portable, but like the PS4 is really old. So I'm sure that if you really want to give up this question, let me know down in the comments below how you guys feel. If you have one, let me know how you're feeling about it. If you don't have one, let me know what you're thinking about. Are you going to get one, or you're on the fence still? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I promise I'm not just a straight up hater. I'm just pointing out that there are some flaws with the Switch 2,
Vertical list.
and I feel
1
like Nintendo could have done a
of
lot
8.
better.
Cross button.
If
Select.
you guys want to
Circle
why I
button.
also think Mario
Close.
Kart World kind of sucks, check out my other video. It should pop up in a second now. That's all I got for you guys today. And as always,
Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle
what is
button.
up, everybody?
Close.
It's your Gamer here, and today I want to talk about why the Switch 2 kind of sucks. I'm going to tell you why. At first glance, it
On
looks
the
like a
truck.
solid
Prime
upgrade.
stock. Reward. 20. Tech parts. 200. 8. Swipe left. Touchpad swipe left. Open FNSM app. On the truck. Trapped in a high rise. 1 of 1. Unknown. Meters. Alert. You cannot switch characters right now. Circle button. Back.
Not even Mario Kart World.
Trapped in a high rise. 1 of 1. Alert. You cannot switch characters right now. Circle button. Trapped. Hold. R2 button. Plus. Cross button. Then release. Charge jump.
Nice work on
On the
the app.
truck. Prime stock. Reward. 20. Tech parts. 200. 8. Resume. Vertical list. 1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close. On the truck. Prime stock. Reward. 20. Tech parts. 285. XP.
$10 each to upgrade. So if you already own a library of Switch games, you're paying again just to play them with a better frame rate. Now let's talk about the price. The console is $450, and first-party games like Mario Kart World are starting out at $80. That's more than the PlayStation 5 digital cost for a handheld that's not even that powerful. And what do you get for that price? Not a new look, that's for sure. The UI is almost identical to the original Switch. No better portability. The battery life is worse than every previous Switch model. Just 2.5 hours of gameplay. And yes, the battery also drains in sleep mode. And talking about that UI, I know some of you guys are going to say that Switch 1 and Switch 2 are the same. But you guys realize that the DS Lite, the DSi, and the 3DS, they were all completely different UIs. And each time you boot up a new one, it honestly felt like a brand new console. It felt, wow, it looked amazing. They could do something similar. Like, I feel like it would have been really easy for them to throw in. Somehow they made the battery the worst battery in the entire Switch family.
6.
And they paired
Cross
it with a
button.
downgraded
Select.
LCD screen.
Circle
Even
button.
after hyping up
Close.
the OLED on their last gen. You know they're saving the OLED Switch 2 for later, and they're going to charge like $600 for it. And remember Joy-Con drift? Yeah, there are already early reports of stick drift on the new model. They swore they fixed this. It clearly isn't. Hopefully it's just a couple switches having early issues. But there's already been reports of not really a good time. If that wasn't enough, they've added tamper protection so aggressive that people are getting brick consoles for 30 SD. I'm not totally against them breaking consoles that are trying to do stuff, but they gotta make sure that people who are doing normal stuff don't get screwed over.
Square button,
Nintendo's trying to block the modding community, that's whatever. But it's backfiring big time for normal players, and that's honestly just funny stuff. Then you have the $10 tech demo. Nintendo saw Asher's Playroom on the PS5 and said, hey, everybody loves that, let's do that. They forgot that it was free, and it was awesome. This one looks completely terrible. And again, they're charging. All it is show your features, which is, and they're charging $10. Absolutely insane, super crazy by Nintendo.
Let me touch
So what are you paying for? You're not paying for cutting edge power. The Switch 2 just barely catches up to where the original should have been. It's not even trying to compete with other next-gen consoles, because it clearly can't. It's just avoiding being left completely in the dust. I'm telling you guys, if you really just compare it to the Switch 1 and how powerful that console was in comparison to its generation, they're basically just back to square one. They're not really making it any more powerful in terms of current gen. It's a lot more powerful than the Switch 1, but once again, they already have an insane amount of catching up to do, and they only halfway made it there.
Resume vertical list 1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
Maybe it's worth it for you, but for most people, this isn't a big leap forward. It's a $450 reminder that Nintendo can
Resume
get away with
vertical
throwing an
list
absolute bare
1
minimum.
of
Everybody's gonna go
8.
along.
Cross button.
If you still want
Select.
things,
Circle
I would say
button.
maybe wait for more
Close.
games, or if you want to wait even longer, inevitably they're going to have an OLED upgraded console, hopefully with better battery life, because this battery life is honestly embarrassing. I mean, 2.5 hours is supposed to be portable. This ain't going to be dead. You can get forever digital. I just want to be 100% clear though, the Switch 2 is obviously way better than the Switch 1. Even 4K for the first time ever, it does have 120 Hz. I guess if you want to count that, I'm not really going to count that to be honest. But at least it can run normal games at 60 FPS, which is something the Switch 1 couldn't even do. Even though they're on first-party titles like Breath of the Wild, their frame rate drops left and right. So obviously, this isn't much needed. But what I'm saying is they just did the bare minimum, and it's not exactly catching up to the next gen or this generation. In my opinion, I know everybody thought this was like a PS4 Pro or higher. In my opinion, it's like the power of a PS4, which is kind of cool, you know, for like PS4 is really old. How much credit do you really give them in this question? Let me know down in the comments below how you guys feel. If you have one, chat more about it. If you don't have one, let me know what you're thinking about. Are you going to get one? Are you on the fence still? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I promise I'm not a straight up hater. I'm just pointing out that there are some flaws with Switch 2.
Resume
And I feel
vertical
like
list 1 of 8. Cross
you guys
button.
want to hear
Select.
my also
Button.
check out my other video. It should pop up in a second now. That's all I got for you guys today. And as always,
Being a stamp person sounds
Right
complicated.
stick. Target select.
what's up everybody, it's the Terrific Gamer here, and today I want to talk about why the Switch 2 kind of sucks, and I'm going to tell you why. At first glance, it seems like a solid upgrade, but underneath, it's full of baffling choices and disappointing compromises. Let's start with one of the biggest marketing lies that Nintendo used. They're bragging about the 120 Hz support. It sounds great, right? A smooth next generation experience. But here's the truth, only one game supports this. And that is the $10 tech demo called Well 2. Not even Mario Kart World, their own flagship launch game use, which is really disappointing. This is classic Nintendo. Advertise cutting-edge tech and never use it. Speaking of Mario Kart World, it's the only real first-party launch title, and it's mid at best. They completely messed with the formula, one-lap races, highway intermissions, and stripped-down gameplay. Even if you like it, it's all we got, one game. Beyond that, just ports of Switch 1 games or weaker versions of games you played on consoles or PCs elsewhere. And here's the kicker.
Swipe left. Touchpad swipe left. Open FNS
Free out there, but what you actually care about costs like Breath of the Wild Tears Kingdom costs $10 each to upgrade. So if you already own a library of Switch games, you're paying again to play them with better frame rate.
characters right now.
Now let's talk about the price. The console is $450, and first-party games like Mario Kart World are starting out at $80. That's more than PlayStation 5 digital cost for a handheld that's not even that powerful. And what do you get for that price? Not a new look, that's for sure. The UI is almost identical to the original Switch. No battery ability. The battery life is worse than every previous Switch model. Just 2.5 hours of gameplay. And yes, the battery also drains in sleep mode. And talking about that UI, I know some of you guys are going to say that it's Switch 1 and Switch 2, of course the UI is going to be the same. But you guys realize that between the DS Lite, the DSi, and the 3DS, they were all completely different UIs. And each time you boot it up, it honestly felt like a brand new console. It felt, wow, it looked amazing. They could do something similar, like I feel like it would have been really easy for them to throw in. And somehow they made the battery the worst battery in the entire Switch family. And they paired it with a downgraded LCD screen, even after hyping up the OLED on their last gen. You know they're saving the OLED Switch 2 for later, and they're charged like $600 more. Remember Joy-Con drift? Yeah, there are already early reports of stick drift on the new one. They swore they fixed this. It clearly isn't. Hopefully it's just a couple of switches having early issues, but there's already been reports which is not really a good sign. If that wasn't enough, they've added tamper protection so aggressive that people are getting bricked consoles for inserting normal SD cards. I'm not totally against them breaking consoles that are doing legal stuff, but they gotta make sure that people who are doing normal stuff don't get screwed over. Nintendo's trying to block the modding community, and that's whatever, but it's backfiring big time hurting normal players, and that's honestly just unacceptable. And then you have the $10 tech demo. Nintendo saw Asher's Playroom on PS5 and said, hey,
Resume vertical list 1 of 8. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
all it is just shows you the features of the Switch.
Triangle button. Circle
Why
button.
can't we all just let people be people?
So what are you paying for? You're not paying for cutting edge power. The Switch 2 just barely catches up to where the original should have been. It's not even trying to compete with other next-gen consoles because it clearly can't. It's just avoiding being left completely in the dust. I'm telling you guys, if you really just compare it to the Switch 1 and how powerful that console was in comparison to its generation, they're basically just back to square one. They're not really making it any more powerful in terms of current gen. It's a lot more powerful than the Switch 1. But once again, they already have the same amount of catching up to do, and they only halfway made it there. Don't get me wrong though, it's not all bad. If you love Mario Kart or want to replay the Zelda games at 60 FPS, which is awesome, maybe it's worth it for you. But for most people, this isn't a big leap forward. It's a $450 reminder that Nintendo can get away with doing the absolute bare minimum and everybody's going to go along. If you're still on the fence, I would say maybe wait for 4 games, or if you want to wait even longer, inevitably they're going to have an OLED upgraded console, hopefully with better battery life, because this battery life is honestly embarrassing. 2.5 hours is supposed to be portable. This thing's going to be dead before you even get traveling wherever it is you're going. I do want to be 100% clear though, the Switch 2 is obviously way better than the Switch 1. It is 4K for the first time ever. It does have 120 Hz, I guess, if you want to count that. I'm not really going to count that, to be honest. But at least it can run normal games at 60 FPS, which is something Switch 1 couldn't even do. Even though they're on first-party titles like Breath of the Wild, their frame rate drops.
Resume vertical list 1 of 7. Cross button. Select circle button.
Anticipation. Ceiling a hydrant, then I'm on my way.
In my opinion, I know everybody thought this was like PS4 Pro or higher. In my opinion, it's like the power of a PS4, which is kind of cool, you know, it's portable. Like PS4 is really old. So how much credit do you really want to give them is the question. Let me know down in the comments below how you guys feel. If you have one, let me know how you're feeling about it. If you don't have one, let me know what you're thinking. Are you going to get one or you're on the fence still? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I promise I'm not just a straight up hater. I'm just pointing out that there are some flaws in the Switch 2, and I feel like Nintendo could have done a lot better with this. If you guys want to hear about also think Mario Kart World kind of sucks, check out my other video. It should pop up any second now. That's all I got for you guys today. And as always,
Resume vertical list 1 of 7. Cross button. Select circle button. Close.
Tu sitio web es el corazón de tu negocio en línea. Protégelo de amenazas digitales con nuestra...
Resume
and we
vertical
get prices
list
higher than
1
any other company
of
in
7.
gaming. And
Cross
don't forget,
button.
they sue anybody and
Select
everybody
circle
who dares
button.
to wear them.
Close.
Nintendo fans have been very patient. We've given Nintendo all the feedback in return. Nintendo fans have been very patient. We've given Nintendo all the feedback any company could ever hope for, and we've supported just about every one of their projects this decade. What do we get in return? We get ignored, we get radio silence on major issues, and we get prices higher than any other company in gaming. And don't forget, they sue anybody and everybody who dares to wear a Mario hat. This isn't a one-time issue.
Resume vertical list 1 of...
Let's start with a little game most of you probably know, Power World. This game took the internet by storm, selling 1 million copies in 8 hours, and 8 million copies in under 6 days. It hit 2.1 million concurrent players on Steam, making it the second highest of all time, only coming in
Resume
behind PUBG.
vertical list
And this
1
wasn't just some
of
hit.
7.
That team,
Cross
all the
button.
Pokemon have
Select
become a
circle
franchise has
button.
been run into
Close.
the ground with copy and paste releases and barely any improvements whatsoever. They saw an opportunity to give fans the kind of games that they want. And this 35 developers made it happen. But Nintendo, yeah, they weren't having any of that. They started coming after Power World with everything they've got. Lawsuits, patents,
Resume
pressure,
vertical
everything they had,
list
forcing the
1
devs to
of...
change their game. Now, let me be clear, I totally get a company wanting to protect its IP. I'm not saying people should just rip off Mario and call it a day. But what Nintendo filed patents for was completely ridiculous. They actually claimed they should be the only game allowed to use a ball to capture and release creatures. And somehow they got away with that.
Resume.
Power World had to remove the ability to throw a spear and summon creatures. They even had to take out gliding with your pals because that too was too close to Nintendo's patent. Are you kidding me? How is that something that's patentable? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. What's next? Games won't allow you to have characters who jump because Nintendo owns Mr. Jumpman himself, Mario? It's completely ridiculous. And that whole our way or the highway attitude, it's just in every portion of their business now. Everywhere you look, every game they release, you can see it just seeping out. Let's talk about Zelda for a second. Breath of the Wild came out, and it was a great game, an amazing game, but it did have major flaws. The Divine Beasts, they didn't hit like those classic dungeons. They were far from it, actually. The breakable weapons were annoying, and 100% completion board, that was like...
Resume vertical list 1 of 9. Cross button. Select circle button. Close.
Here's the kingdom drop. What did we get? Did they fix any of that? No, basically the exact same game with a different skin. It's had all the same issues,
Resume
the same problems.
vertical list 1 of 9. Cross button. Select circle button. Close.
The worst teacher we've ever had, if that helps.
But it ended up being basically the same as the
Put
Divine
that
Beast.
on
The
my
only difference was they
resume?
just weren't Divine
Well,
Beast.
listen,
It was still the same thing though. Like, it wasn't really much of an improvement at all. And the other things were still there as well. Still breakable weapons. It's still 100% reward that just wasn't worth the time at all. Pretty much wasn't reward at all. Everything the fans said about Breath of the Wild fell on completely deaf ears. Now I know some of you guys are thinking this is all old news, and it is old news. Let's talk about something a little more recent. Mario Kart. First of all, Tears of the Kingdom was $70. Like, we're using a ton of assets from Breath of the Wild, and fans weren't happy about that. And now, a few years later, Mario Kart World costs a whopping $80. That's the most expensive major game
Don't show me the
Meanwhile,
city.
PlayStation, Xbox, they're still charging $70 now. But fine, let's just say for a second hypothetically that price was justified. Is the game good? Well, yes and no. The game at its core is good, but its biggest flaw are the intermissions, which is basically a new feature where you drive from one track to the next. The problem is, that counts as your first 2 laps. So whenever you end up at the actual track itself, you only get to race around it for one single lap. All in all, maybe it's a nice creative new idea, but it's terrible for hardcore fans. It's terrible.
Una lección, Jairo, una puta lección.
Select circle button. Close.
Go online, you just have to hope you get lucky and a 3-lap track pops up.
Resume vertical list 1 of 9. Cross button. Select circle button. Close. Photo man.
And the game has been patched multiple times, and Nintendo just flat out refuses to give us the option to just race a normal 3-lap race in online. It just doesn't make any sense. It's
Level
dropping away,
save
and some people
vertical
are going back to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
of 9.
Like, how embarrassing is that? People are going back to your last game, like a decade old, and you're just refusing to change the new one because you're just convinced that your new feature is amazing, even though the fans are telling you otherwise. And before I wrap this up, I want to talk about something called Joy-Con drift. Probably the biggest example of Nintendo just not caring about its fans at all. Everybody knew that the Joy-Cons were drifting way too soon, way too quick. You dropped $80 on say anything. They didn't do anything. They didn't care. They didn't even respond until they got sued and were forced to help the customer in the situation. Before that, they couldn't care less. They didn't fix the problem because it was the right thing to do. They fixed it because they had no choice but to do so. There are a ton of other examples I could bring up in this video, but then this video would be an hour long, so I don't want to do that. Let's talk about how and if this will ever change. Personally, I don't honestly see it going very well in the future. I mean, if you look at these sort of CEOs and higher ups of Nintendo, it seems like, I'm not going to say names, but some of them aren't even involved anymore, we're sadly passing away. It seems like that's a lot to do with the problem. They're solely focused on making money now, and that's it. And unless they start losing a lot of money, I don't see them changing. And their brand
I
is
wanted to let you know I just sent in a
like
photo
the
for
after
you
the
to
game
call.
People are just going to find it. It has Mario on it. It's the only place where you can play Mario. Therefore, people are just going to keep coming. And even if the mainstream or the hardcore fans get tired of it and they actually do stop buying, which that will never happen, but even if they did, it's still kids. You know, it's still a children's market, especially with Mario and Pokemon and things of that nature. And parents are going to buy those games for their kids. So I just personally don't think that this is going to change anytime soon. Instead, let me just ask you this. How long do you think
Cross button to continue.
With broken features, reused content, and completely ignoring the fans who made them successful to begin with? Seriously,
Touch
they're charging
add button.
premium prices
Open
for
map.
inferior products, and they're completely getting away with it. and it feels like they just don't care at all anymore because they know that they can. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And as always, peace.
Explore the city to find Marco's memories, photos, ops, crimes, and other activities. Resume. Vertical list. 1 up.
Nintendo fans have been very patient. We've given Nintendo all the feedback any company could ever hope for. And we've supported just about every one of their projects for decades. And what do we get in return? We get ignored, we get radio silence on major issues, and we get prices higher than any other company in gaming. And don't forget, they sue anybody and everybody who dares to wear a Mario hat. This isn't a one-time issue either. This is Nintendo at its core, and it's getting worse by the minute. Let's start with a little game most of you probably know, Power World. This game took the internet by storm, selling 1 million copies in 8 hours, and 8 million copies in under 6 days.
Triangle button.
Just some lucky hit. The dev team saw what Pokemon had become. A franchise that's been run into the ground with copy and paste releases and barely any improvements whatsoever. They saw an opportunity to give fans the kind of game that they've been asking for. And it worked. Just 35 developers made it happen. But Nintendo, yeah, they weren't having any of that. They started coming after Power World with everything they've got. Lawsuits, patents, pressure, everything they had, forcing the devs to change their game. Now let me be clear, I totally get a company wanting to protect its IP. I'm not saying people should just rip off Mario and call it a day. But what Nintendo filed patents for was completely ridiculous. They actually claimed they should be the only game allowed to use a ball to capture and release creatures. And somehow they got away with that. Power World had to remove the ability to throw spears at some creatures. They even had to take out gliding with your pals, because that too was too close to Nintendo's patents. Are you kidding me? How is that something that's patentable? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. What's next? Games won't allow you to have characters who jump because Nintendo owns Mr. It's completely ridiculous. And the whole our way or the highway attitude, it's just in every portion of their business now. Everywhere you look, every game they release, you can see it just seeping out. Let's talk about Zelda for a second. Breath of the Wild came out, and it was a great game, an amazing game even. But it did have major flaws. The Divine Beasts, they didn't hit like those classic dungeons. They were far from that. The Grateful Weapons were annoying, and 100% completion reward, that was like a total slap in the face. And fans made all of that very clear. They were super loud about it for years. So when the direct sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, dropped, what did we get? Did they fix any of that? No, basically the exact same game with a different skin. It had all the same issues and same problems that Breath of the Wild had. They didn't listen to anything fans said about that game at all. They made it seem like Tears of the Kingdom was going to have much better dungeons and be closer to something like Ocarina of Time or other classic Zelda games. But it ended up being basically the same as the Divine Beast. The only difference was they just weren't Divine Beast. It was still the same thing though. Like, it wasn't really much of an improvement at all. And the other things were still there as well. Still Grateful Weapons and still 100% reward that just wasn't worth the time at all. Pretty much wasn't a reward at all. Everything the fans said about Breath of the Wild fell on completely deaf ears. Now I know some of you guys are thinking this is all old news, and it is old news. So let's talk about something a little more recent. Mario Kart World. First of all, Tears of the Kingdom was $70. Despite reusing a ton of assets from Breath of the Wild, the fans weren't happy about that. And now a few years later, Mario Kart World costs a fucking $80. That's the most expensive major game.
Vertical list. 1 of 9. Cross button. Select. Circle button. Close.
Is the game good? Well, yes and no. The game at its core is good, but its biggest flaw is cameras, which is basically a new feature where you drive from one track to the next. The problem is, that counts as your first 2 laps. So whenever you end up at the actual track itself, you only get to race around it for one single lap. All in all, maybe a nice creative new idea, but it's terrible for hardcore fans and it's terrible to just play the game on the regular. Most people are going to want to play a traditional track for 3 laps. And for some reason, online doesn't have that option at all. You go in online and you just have to hope you get lucky and a 3-lap track pops up and you can click on it. But more times than not, it's going to be all intermissions and you're not going to get to choose. And that's the part people hate the most. Fans have been begging for them to add any options since this game came out. And the game has been patched multiple times. And Nintendo just flat out refuses to give us the option to just race a normal 3-lap race in online. It just doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. Left in a hurry this morning. I'll just meet you there.
Okay, cool. You and Miles get back to school?
This new feature is amazing, even though the fans are telling you otherwise. And before I wrap this up, I want to talk about something called Joy-Con Drift. Probably the biggest example of Nintendo just not caring about its fans at all. Everybody knew that Joy-Cons were dirty bases and crazy great. They dropped $80 on these things, and within months they didn't click on using them. Nintendo didn't say anything, they didn't do anything, they didn't care. They didn't even respond until they got sued and were forced to help the customers in this situation. Before that, they couldn't care less. They didn't fix the problem because it was the right thing to do. They fixed it because they had no choice but to do so. There are a ton of other examples I could bring up in this video, but this video would be an hour long, so I don't want to do that. Let's talk about how and if this will ever change. Personally, I don't honestly see it going very well in the future. I mean, if you look at the sort of CEOs and the higher ups of Nintendo, it seems like, I'm not going to say names, but some of them not being as involved anymore or sadly passing away, it seems like that's a lot to do with the problem. They're solely focused on making money now, and that's it. And unless they start losing a lot of money, I don't see them changing. And their brand is just too big. It's kind of like Apple. Nintendo is like the Apple of the gaming market. People are just going to buy it. It has Mario on it. It's the only place where you can play Mario. Therefore, people are just going to keep coming. And even if the mainstream or the hardcore fans get tired of it and they actually do stop buying, which that will never happen, but even if they did, it's still kids, you know, like it's still a children's market, especially with Mario and Pokemon and things of that nature. And parents are going to buy those games for their kids. So I just personally don't think this is going to change anytime soon, if ever. Instead, let me just ask you guys this. How long do you think Nintendo can keep charging premium prices with broken features, reused content, and completely ignoring the fans who made them successful to begin with? Seriously, they're charging premium prices for inferior products, and they're completely getting away with it. And it feels like they just don't care at all anymore because they know that they can. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And as always, peace. Nintendo fans have been very patient. We've given Nintendo all the feedback any company could ever hope for, and we've supported just about every one of their projects for decades. And what do we get in return? We get ignored, we get radio silence on major issues, and we get prices higher than any other company in gaming. And don't forget, they sue anybody and everybody who dares to wear a Mario hat. This isn't a one-time issue either. This is Nintendo at its core, and it's getting worse by the minute. Let's start with a little game most of you probably know, Power World. This game took the internet by storm, selling 1 million copies in 8 hours, and 8 million copies in under 6 days. It had 2.1 million concurrent players on Steam, making it the second highest of all time, only coming in behind PUBG. And this wasn't just some lucky hit. The dev team saw what Pokemon had become, a franchise that's been run into the ground with copy and paste releases and barely any improvements whatsoever. They saw an opportunity to give fans the kind of game that they've been asking for, and it worked. Just 35 developers made it happen. But Nintendo Nintendo.
Internet ilimitado en tu próximo viaje. Con un Lifeline puedes comprar tu eSIM hoy y configurarla antes de viajar.
Vertical list.
Tienes
1
un año
of
para
9.
usarla.
Cross
Yeah, they
button.
weren't having any of
Select.
that.
Circle
They
button.
started coming into power
Close.
with everything they got. Lawsuits, patents, pressure, everything they had, forcing the devs to change their game. Now, let me be clear,
Resume.
I totally
Vertical
get a
list.
company wanting to
1
protect the
of
IP. I'm not
9.
saying people
Cross
should just rip
button.
off Mario and call it a
Select.
day.
Circle
But what
button.
Nintendo filed
Close.
patents for was completely ridiculous. They actually claimed they should be the only game allowed to use a ball to capture and release creatures. And somehow they got away with that. Our world had to remove the ability to throw a spear and summon creatures. They even had to take out gliding with your pals, because that too was too close to
Amazing
Nintendo's
suit.
patents. Are you
Scarlet
kidding me?
black
How is that
mouse
something
stand
that's patentable?
black
Like,
suit
it just doesn't make
grid
any sense.
row.
What's next?
Advanced suit
Games will allow you to have characters who
2.0
jump because Nintendo owns
symbiote
Mr.
suit.
Jumpman
Advanced
himself,
suit
Mario.
grid
It's
row
completely
2
ridiculous.
item
And that
3
whole our way or the highway
of 4
attitude, it's just in every portion of their
advanced
business now.
suit 2
Everywhere you look, every game they
symbiote
release, you
suit
can see it just
grid
seeping out.
row 1
Let's talk about Zelda
black
for a second.
suit
Breath
grid
of the Wild
row
came out, and it wasn't a
symbiote
great game,
suit
an amazing
grid
game even.
row
But it did have
1
major
item
flaws.
3
The Divine
of
Beasts, they didn't hit like
4
those classic
owned
dungeons. They were
suit
far
stock.
from it, actually. The breakable weapons were annoying, and the 100% completion reward, that was like a total slap in the face. And fans made all of that very clear. They were super loud about it for years. So when the direct sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, dropped, what did we get? Did they fix any of that? No, basically the exact same game with a different skin. It's had all the same issues and same problems that Breath of the Wild had. They didn't listen to anything fans said about that game at all. They made it seem like Tears of the Kingdom was going to have much better dungeons and be closer to something like Ocarina of Time or other classic Zelda games. But it ended up being basically the same as the Divine Beast. The only
I'm
difference was
just
they just
gonna
weren't Divine Beast.
tidy
It
up
was still
a
the same thing though. Like it wasn't really much of an improvement at all. And the other things were still there as well. Still breakable weapons, and
Triangle
still
button.
100% reward that just wasn't worth
Inspect
the time at all. It pretty much wasn't a reward at all. Everything the fans said about Breath of the Wild fell on completely deaf ears. Now I know some of you guys are thinking this is all old news, and it is old news. So let's talk about something a little more recent. Mario Kart World. First of all, Tears of the Kingdom was $70, despite reusing a ton of assets from Breath of the Wild, and fans weren't happy about that.
Save.
And now, a few
Vertical
years
list.
later, Mario Kart World costs a lot.